past few weeks, we have been hearing so much about Puerto Rico and Trump and all of the fighting back and forth. The US Virgin Islands have been completely lost in all of the fighting. And ladies and gentlemen, they have suffered in the same manner that Puerto Rico has suffered. And there has been little to no attention given to the US Virgin Islands. And as you can see in this picture, they are facing the same devastations and without power and suffering in the same manner as Puerto Rico. US Virgin Islands is grappling for attention after being hit by two hurricanes. Depending on what media outlets Americans engage, they may think that Puerto Rico is the only U.S. territory hit by hurricanes recently, but that's not true. The U.S. Virgin Islands were hit twice by Hurricane Irma and Maria, and for the most part have been overlooked in the national disaster relief conversation. And I guess this is their delegate, Stacy Placid, U.S. Virgin Island. The Category 5 storm left the community without power and internet service, preventing many stores and pharmacies from serving customers who mainly use cards to purchase essential items. We hear headlines about what's happening in Puerto Rico, she told MSNBC's Joy Reid last week. I can't tell you the low morale that the people of the Virgin Islands have right now about how the federal government and the rest of Americans feel about them, because we hear nothing about the people of the U.S. Virgin Islands. And that's true. Everything I've heard over the last few weeks have been all about Puerto Rico. And unfortunately, some of us are beginning to think that maybe it's because the U.S. Virgin Islands is primarily Black territory that we're not hearing anything in the news, Placid added. There is no discussion about us. Trump originally considered visiting the Virgin Islands, but did not include a stop in the territory on his brief trip this week. Now, why would you go to Puerto Rico and then leave and not visit the Virgin Islands that's right next to it practically? Oh my goodness, this man is such a dickhead. I will be going to Puerto Rico on Tuesday with Melania. We'll hopefully be able to stop at the U.S. Virgin Islands. People working hard, Trump tweeted on September 30th. So he just went to Puerto Rico and then just skipped the hell on out of there. Ooh, this is not a president. After spending a well-received or much criticized day in Puerto Rico, depending on the coverage, Trump headed to Nevada to meet with those impacted by one of the worst mass shootings in recent U.S. history. The White House has not yet announced its plans for the president to visit the Virgin Islands, but Vice President Pence stopped there this week. During Pence's visit to the U.S. Virgin Island, Governor Ken Mapp praised the Trump administration, saying the U.S. government has hurricane response and efforts to restore power and operations down to a science. There is no country that responds to disasters like the United States of America, Mapp said. Yeah, Mapp sounded like he's kissing some ass. He didn't respond to y'all for 2 weeks, and then he skipped out and didn't even visit the Virgin Islands. Oh my goodness. Who was able to meet with Trump during his visit to Puerto Rico? And while that may be true, others in the territory feel the latest response by Washington is part of a longer pattern of disinterest in the citizens of the U.S. Virgin Islands, a predominantly Black community of 103,000 people who can't vote in presidential elections, who are also represented by Congress by a delegate who cannot vote. Sally Jewell, the Interior Secretary under Obama, told New York Times reporter Jeremy Peters, a former resident of the territory, They're not really on the radar, she said, when she would try to get members of Congress to take notice of local issues in the Virgin Islands. She recalled she would be met with, oh my goodness. So when she was trying to get attention, um, they were pretty much ignoring her. They would say, "We're here to focus on the United States." And I'd say, they are the United States. So they were trying to cast aside the Virgin Islands altogether when the delegate tried to raise issues on what was going on there. Wow. Wow. At the end of Pence visit, Placid took to social media to remind Americans of the very fact, while some have moved on to other newsier stories, she's calling on them to be mindful of the millions of Americans in the Caribbean still desperately need of assistance even after the country's leader returned to Washington. Our nation comes together during crisis Puerto Rico, hashtag Puerto Rico and hashtag USVI, should be no different. We must stand with hashtag our fellow Americans as they recover. Placid tweeted on October 6th. So, wow, I'm just blown away that Trump didn't even go out there to visit the U.S. Virgin Islands, and he was right there. He was not that far away from the U.S. Virgin Islands if he was in Puerto Rico. Oh, that really sucks. Well, he didn't even care enough to visit. So if he is insulting Puerto Rico, he's just completely ignoring these black people out here on the U.S. Virgin Islands. And this is why America is becoming more hated in the world each and every day. And then you want to sit there talking about some go back to Africa. Get out of here, man. You can't even run things right. This is just a byproduct of how poorly America runs things. You can talk all that in charge mess, in charge and stupid. Please leave your comment and subscribe. And if you can donate to my channel, please do. Peace, family.